Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of Fillmore City Council to order, please. And let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Councilmember Mendez, will you please lead us?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And may I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Villaseñor.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gurrola.
Here.
Mayor Brogy.
Here.
Councilmember Austin. Councilmember Mendez.
Here.
I would like to note that Councilmember Austin is out ill this evening and will not be able to join us. So we'll fill him in later on what occurs here. So thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. So moving on to our presentations, item number 5, we have Derek Garage and Megan Garage here with regard to the Ventura County Healthcare Agency updates on the Santa Paula Hospital.
Mayor, I think on the name announcement of who's presenting, I think it's Mr. Zimmerman. The names of who's...
I'll introduce
Okay,
them.
all right.
Yeah.
I did.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Barry Zimmerman, the Director of the Healthcare Agency, and we're here to present our current budget proposal before the Board of Supervisors on Santa Paula Hospital and some proposals that we have regarding its services. Today with me, I have Dr. John Fankhauser, who's the CEO of our hospital system, which represents VCMC and Santa Paula Hospital. And also here today is Dr. Terry Cho, who's the CEO of our ambulatory care clinic system throughout Ventura County. So they'll participate, but I'll turn the time first over to Dr. Fankhauser to present on the current operations of Santa Paula Hospital and the proposals that we have.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, Mr. Rollins. I appreciate the chance to be here. I think it would be helpful just to give you a little bit more detail about my background as I reflect on Santa Paula Hospital, because I have spent a lot of time at Santa Paula Hospital since it reopened in 2006, and it's been a big part of my practice over the years. I'm a family physician by background, and I started in OB call group of family physicians who had advanced obstetric training. And in 2006, they asked my call group to be the call group that covered Santa Paula Hospital. So from 2006 until I went to Africa in 2013, I was one of the small group of people who covered Santa Paula call in both the obstetrics unit, as well as along with, at that time, Dr. Carl Constantine in the hospitalist group. So I have spent a lot of time there, and I have a deep appreciation for the impact that it's had on our community and the care that is given there. So with that, I just want to share some of the trends at Santa Paula Hospital that have led us to the place that I think you all know that we are considering really putting our focus in the operating room, in the emergency room, in the inpatient setting and non-ICU level care, and growing that at Santa Paula Hospital. So let me just share a little bit about the trends there. With that first slide, Santa Paula Hospital's, I'm not sure who's controlling the slides. Oh, it's me, actually. My apologies. Santa Paula Hospital's inpatient volume hovers around 12, and that really has been stable. Barry will show some slides later with kind of that even expanded beyond 2 years. The slides I'm going to show you are 2 years worth of trend, but we really do have a need in the community. It seems to be about 12 or so inpatients that fluctuated There were even, higher levels during the COVID crisis. We saw Santa Paula Hospital really being utilized during that period of time. When we look at the emergency room, we see actually an upward trend. And in the last 2 years, that upward trend has continued. It's a busy emergency room. It's about 40% of the volume of VCMC's emergency room, which, as you know, is a very, very busy trauma center. Much lower acuity, much fewer patients who are seen in the emergency room end up hospitalized. But the community knows about Santa Paula Hospital, and I think our emergency room reflects that. It's a busy place. A lot of people will choose, even coming from East Ventura, to come to Santa Paula Hospital. Waits are shorter. It's the same team that covers the Ventura County Medical Center's emergency room and trauma center services. So very, very high caliber physicians, and the care that is provided in that emergency room is excellent. And I think those of us who are speaking today have utilized that emergency room for our services and family. Operating room has become an increasingly popular place to get surgery. Very good patient experience there, and the surgeons like it. It's really an efficient operating room, very well run. We have 2 operating rooms, and the way ORs are set up, there's a third operating room that just has to sit dormant because we have to have an operating room available if there's a need for a cesarean section. And so that third operating room is not utilized at all. The demand is there. We would have physicians who would be happy to operate there. There's patients who would like to have their surgery there, and yet we're really unable to use that third operating room because of the need to leave one OR available for C-sections if it were to occur. Our birth rate is really the trend that has been most significant at that hospital, and this is the last 2 years. Barry will share a slide of 15 years, but we continue to see fewer and fewer members of our community utilizing Santa Paula Hospital for their births. We have really remarkable prenatal care providers in our community, both here and in Santa Paula. Dr. Lisa Salinas, who many of you have heard of, is kind of a premier OB provider in the area and has done hundreds of deliveries at Santa Paula Hospital. But she also developed a training program for family physicians to really focus on prenatal care and OB skills. And the 3 graduates of that program, Dr. Levin, Dr. Wisnowski and Dr. Ananth, all 4 of them are now practicing in Santa Paula and Fillmore and providing prenatal care. And irrespective of what happens with our OB department, they'll continue to provide really high caliber prenatal care, excellent physicians, and are really providing a needed service in our community. Where the deliveries are coming from in Santa Paula Hospital are really VCMC's clinics. I think, very high-profile commitment had been made for clinicas to bring their OB patients there, but that really has not happened. As you can see, even in this calendar year, you see very, very few patients coming to Santa Paula Hospital outside of our own Ventura County clinic system. I just want to kind of say what we've done to promote OB at Santa Paula Hospital, and we did create a midwife program with the projections that we were going to see a lot of patients come to the midwives. Really didn't happen. Ended up being maybe a couple of deliveries a month that were shared among the 3 midwives that we had. We got an immersion tub, some of the tools of the trade that the midwives use for those deliveries. Dr. Salinas and her team had kind of promoted the ability to have a birthing bed that's like a queen-size medical-style bed to have a more home-centered birth, and then have put a lot of effort into social media and marketing those services at the hospital. And we continue to have, at both VCMC and Santa Paula Hospital, the lowest cesarean section rates in the county. And I think at both hospitals, the care is excellent. But despite that, we see the trends that we have seen and really have to take a look at. Is it really appropriate for us to continue to set aside the resources of Santa Paula Hospital for an OB service that's this calendar year doing about 10 deliveries a month? And is it really appropriate for us to set that OR aside and let it remain dormant because it has to be available on call for that now what has become one cesarean section delivery per month. We've also invested in imaging services, and these are the trends for the last 2 years of CT scans, ultrasounds, mammograms. Got a really remarkably good mammogram instrument there, and it's a 3D mammogram, has these curved paddles that are optimizing comfort, and has been a very popular place for women to get their cancer screening, as well as just general x-ray. So we are seeing Santa Paula Hospital. There are services there, as I mentioned, that are really continuing to increase in volume and really reflective of the community's need for those services. So with that background, I'll just let Barry step up and kind of share some of the thoughts as far as what this next chapter should hold for the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fankhauser. So I will give a little overview kind of as the dynamic in the kind of the market activities and forces that are involved with Santa Paula Hospital. As mentioned, our census is low in the hospital. The hospital, if you didn't know, is licensed. No hospital runs their operation at top of the license, but just to tell you the utilization of the facility, we're licensed for 49 beds, and we have a census around 12. And so that is a significantly lower, right, for the whole capacity of the facility there. So that is a concern for us in the longevity of the hospital and its utilization. In particular, our focus here today is service line related to labor and delivery. And this is a long-term trend associated with the number of deliveries within the system itself. We've seen a steady decline over the years, and that's not unusual in the sense that county-wide births are down, so all systems are seeing a decrease associated with their labor and delivery volumes there. However, this magnitude associated with Santa Paula is significant in nature, so where we're at today is about 3 times lower than where we were at the height when we were running when it was reopened and running at a top level there. So sustainability is important associated with that. In order to work in a hospital and to keep it viable, you need to have volume going through the hospital in order to sustain the infrastructure that is required to run all the services there. At this pace, this is not meeting those numbers at this point here. Just to give reference there, Adventist in Simi Valley, their OB, they just shut down their OB services there in Simi Valley as well. And they were operating around just under 500 a year is what they were, and shut that down. In addition to that, we've seen other systems, and this is not unique to the industry. It's kind of a dilemma associated with hospital management on how to maintain the volumes or these services when the volumes are so low. So we see this downward trend associated with labor and deliveries, and so that has brought us to the point of discussing, well, what are the main services that we need to concentrate on within Santa Paula Hospital? And so that's what we've done there, or that's what we're proposing to do. So this graphic here gives you more of an illustration of what services are highest demand for the hospital and what is the community and the broader region using the hospital for. The purple line there is what Dr. Fankhauser referred to as the emergency room activities. In particular, over the last 2 years, we've seen a significant growth, but the volume and the usage within Santa Paula Hospital for ER services has always been high, and seeing that increase and go higher. So definitely one of the critical things is to position the hospital both financially and operationally to sustain that service and maintain the robustness around emergency medicine and all the services that go with that. As mentioned, though, we do see that the acuity level associated with individuals entering in the hospital is lower than what we see and experience elsewhere, in particular at VCMC there. Just as a point of reference, for example, if someone is in a traumatic car wreck on the 126, they will go to the trauma center and not Santa Paula Hospital first, right? It is appropriate to get them where the maximum services are available there. And so, but we do have a significant number of individuals appropriately going to Santa Paula's emergency services. You see there, deliveries have been tailing off and declining over time. That's the bottom blue line in particular. Then also the orange line is orange line is showing the usage of days in the ICU. And so we've seen a significant drop off for those admits associated with ICU days in Santa Paula Hospital. And today, our operation reflects the usage that those that need the highest level of care and most services are transferred to VCMC, where they can get a plethora and the comprehensive services to them. So our effort is to look at this and to position the hospital financially and structurally in the marketplace that would be able to maintain it and continue forward and keep the doors open, to say. This is kind of just some financial numbers. If you look at our current year-end projection, we were projecting about a $16 million loss out of Santa Paula Hospital. To put that in perspective, that relates about to a 30% net loss for the operation. It consumes, it receives about $35 million worth of revenue, and so about a $16 million loss. Over the long run, that is not sustainable for a business unit to maintain that high level of operating margin in the red. So the proposal is to reshape service lines there by transferring OB services and ICU services to VCMC, adding now the third operating room would be available, increasing capacity for procedural activity of surgery there, and expanding the telemetry as well as what we call the step-down services from the ICU level. That is really the community usage and need at this point in time there. This is, although we are a public system, we do operate within the true marketplace of healthcare. So we compete in that regard. Although our focus is on the Medi-Cal population, we still have to answer to the winds and to the directions of the marketplace. And this is where some of these proposals are positioning us to be successful within it. Service line repositioning is not unique to hospital systems. There, many of them occur in the private system that you don't hear of. For example, pediatric services throughout the county have all been realigned, and we're the only, and we've accepted all that, we're the only pediatric service line now in the county of Ventura. All the other hospitals, due to volumes, have chosen not to staff and run those services in their facilities. So that's just kind of some of the trends and the activity occurring within the market space that we have now. And then I'll turn the time over to Dr. Fankhauser to reinforce that what we're proposing here is labor and delivery services will be transferred to VCMC, but women's health and OB broader scope of services is not being eliminated or reduced in the valley whatsoever. So I'll have him cover those details there.
Thank you, Barry. I wanted to really respond to what I think is very easy to conclude, which is if you're not doing OB, you're not focused on women's health care, and that is absolutely not the case. We have a high level of appreciation for the need for women's health care. We have extraordinary women's health care providers. Dr. Cho, who runs the ambulatory care system, has recruited OB providers into our system that are second to none, and family physicians who really have a focus on women's health care. And we will continue to be committed to growing those services that are needed in the community. I'm just going to list a couple of that. This is not a comprehensive list, but just among the things I mentioned: mammograms, cancer screening in the population that is the safety net population is a particular need. I think what we see is that population is disproportionately affected by the lack of access to cancer screening. And we believe that mammogram at Santa Paula Hospital goes a long way to helping close that gap. We have extraordinary primary care providers who each are taking new patients and they're the kind of providers that me and my staff would trust with our own family members. We have reproductive specialty care providers. We've recruited 3 new OBGYNs into our system, and all of them will see patients in Santa Paula. They all cover our Santa Paula emergency room. So when people come in with tubal pregnancies or postmenopausal bleeding, those kinds of conditions that really require an OBGYN's intervention, we do have that group who's covering our emergency room. And then this year we added a urologist she did an additional fellowship in urogynecology, and that's the kind of specialist, very few around, but who perform pelvic floor reconstruction, bladder reconstruction, and really those specialty surgeries that women sometimes need, and we're able to provide those here. We don't have to send people to Los Angeles for those, which is terrific. And each of those surgeons operates in Santa Paula Hospital. I think Councilmember Villaseñor, thank you for your comments. And I think one of the terms I heard was this de-emphasis of Santa Paula Hospital, and really the root of this is to really create a sustainable model so that Santa Paula Hospital exists in a healthy manner now, and it makes sense to rebuild Santa Paula in 2030, which we may get to push it out to 2033. But what we know is that by 2033, we need to be in a new building. And so our intent is really to create a model where that makes sense. I just wanted to share a couple other service lines, really GI and surgery, that are growing. This is just another example of growth in this area. So we went from one gastroenterologist who was really only focused at VCMC to 3 gastroenterologists this year. And again, I get to talk about it, but really Dr. Cho deserves the credit for the kind of bringing these folks on board. But Dr. Verma, Dr. Lori, Dr. Nurang, there will be gastroenterologists doing colonoscopies and upper GIs at Santa Paula Hospital starting this summer. And then we've mentioned multiple times surgery. And I think, not only volume of surgery, but new types of surgery. So we're going to continue to do, the foot cases that we've been doing. We have a new hand surgeon, so we'll be able to do hand surgery out here. We have an ENT surgeon, and we have, I'm looking up here, the general surgery, we provide, the appendectomies and kind of emergency cases there that are not the big cases where someone is going to need an ICU, But this is the vast majority of the cases that do show up in the emergency room can be operated on at Santa Paula Hospital. And then we're looking into bringing our neurosurgeons out. We happen to have an additional scope, a microscope, operating microscope, and the neurosurgeons have expressed interest in coming out and doing some of their back pain cases at Santa Paula Hospital. So if we do get that third operating room, we would be able to bring neurosurgery out as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mr. Zimmerman to talk a little bit about the new Santa Paula Hospital. But do want to just kind of represent that this is in no way an intent to de-emphasize the value of Santa Paula Hospital to the community. Quite the contrary, we believe that there is a really, really important role for that hospital in our community, and it's really our attempt to align the needs of the community, the use of the hospital with the resources that are there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Really quick, I don't want to take up your whole evening, but really quick, that we do have plans to rebuild Santa Paula Hospital. Even with these changes that we're proposing here, has not shifted or taken away our effort and proposal to build a new hospital. For those that don't know, the proposal is that Santa Paula Hospital, currently as it sits up on 10th Street, up on the hill there, will not meet seismic requirements under state guidelines. It is an old building anyway, so it does need some major refurbishing in order to keep it viable. So with that criteria that it won't be operational after 2030, we do need to find a solution. The proposal is to build a new hospital off the 126. So as you come into Santa Paula and what is that, Halleck Drive right there, that's where the location of this proposal is being designed right now. So it is being designed as an operating hospital that, as we proposed with the new structure or service demands that we have there. And so we continue to work effort on that. The part of the reason is to reshape the hospital into an operating model that we think can gain support and momentum for. I don't have a crystal ball, but as far as knowing healthcare and healthcare industry, Santa Paula Hospital probably will never break even or make a profit, right? We acknowledge that, and that's not the decisions that we're making here just because it loses money. The question is, though, we have to absorb that loss within our system as a whole. It's not, there's no magic bucket out there with a contribution to say we cover that. And so we have to operate it in a context that can be absorbed within the system for the value that we want to get out of it and to deliver to the community there. That's why it is important to restructure the facility to the highest and best use that we can, and bring that into a margin that is acceptable. And that is today, in order to do that effort, because to build a new hospital is very expensive. And so we would be adding significant, almost doubling the loss associated with Santa Paula Hospital for the new hospital. So in some regards, we have to position it well enough to be able now to absorb what we would be doubling the contribution that our system gives to the hospital in order to sustain a new hospital there. And that is the proposal that we're headed to, and trying to sustain and make that as a business case, because we do feel that the services that we are proposing now will only grow and be enhanced as we move it off the 126. So we would anticipate actually probably greater use of the emergency services and emergency medicine activity than what we have today on 10th Street, because I know we've done surveys with some of the community. Some of the younger generation doesn't even know that Santa Paula Hospital exists, and they drive on. So we hope to be there with a big marquee sign. No, just kidding. A big sign that says this is where you can get your emergency services and other services there. In addition to that, we're focusing on the hospital. We're also going to be expanding our clinic system through Santa Paula as well. So today we have about 3 primary clinics there. Along with this, it's a campus setting environment, the hospital with a medical office building there. It consolidates our clinics into there and actually expand the clinics offering for geriatric services. We'll have dentistry in there, also greater capacity for physical therapy and ophthalmology. So that would be an added plus to it, plus access would be much more readily available off the 126. So even with the reconfigurations here, this effort and proposal, still we're pushing forward to move forward with this, that it can get final approval. And I think that concludes our comments today. Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman, I want to thank you, and Doctor, I'm sorry I did not get your last name. Finkhauser. Both of you for being here. I really appreciate the focus on Fillmore and taking the time to come out to the city of Fillmore, because obviously this community utilizes Santa Paula Hospital probably as much as citizens in Santa Paula do. So I appreciate you recognizing that and taking the time to come out here and kind of squelch some of the rumors that are going on with regard to the OBGYN things that are happening. And also the encouragement in hearing about the new hospital being built on the 126 and knowing that that's still a go. So I appreciate that. So thank you very much for coming out here. Okay. And with that said, I do have two speakers. I announced at the beginning here, Derek Garage and Megan Garage. There, okay, please come forward.
Hello. So my name is Megan Farage. I'm currently working as a registered nurse at Santa Paula Hospital in the obstetrical unit, and I'm a lifetime resident of Fillmore in Santa Paula. I'm grievously concerned regarding the proposal to close the OB and the ICU units due to the ramifications of safety to the community that it'll impose. By stripping services from the local hospital, you're systematically crippling its ability to safely and effectively treat and serve its patients. Statements from hospital executives have reported that emergency obstetrical activities and births can still occur at the hospital, but I consider those unconsidered. Time, training, and experience in emergent scenarios are of utmost importance and can literally cost lives. Political and business-minded logistics are driving this vote for closure, but the human aspect of this decision has not yet been properly addressed. I can confidently say that families throughout Piru, Fillmore, and Santa Paula rely on its full-service hospital to meet their needs for general health and in times of emergency. My own family utilizes its services for emergency rooms, lab work, x-rays, ultrasounds, and in more recent past surgeries and the birth of our child in 2019. The welfare of our neighbors depend upon the swift and knowledgeable hands of Santa Paula staff every day. Within our county, we have many that struggle with transportation, finances, and access to health care, and this vote will directly affect those that are most vulnerable. We're currently charged as a publicly owned county hospital to provide services to our diverse community, especially those facing barriers. As other hospitals in our surrounding areas close birthing units and cut services, our county needs to set precedents. Set the standard in healthcare excellence as stated in our own mission and vision statements. The decision made right now regarding the current budget that includes the closure of units in Santa Paula Hospital will bring the well-being of our people to risk. As nurses, it's our duty to speak up when we have concerns of safety for our own patients, and I'm doing that now for my community. For the vote for closure of our units should make you uncomfortable, and it's most definitely a safety issue. Thank you.
And before you begin, I neglected to remind Megan, but we have a 3-minute maximum for speaking from the podium here, so I do have a timer running here, so go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Broggie, council members, and staff. For the record, my name is Derek Farage. I'm a resident here in Fillmore. Today, I'm here to ask for your assistance in working with the County Board of Supervisors to ask them for a no vote on the HCA budget proposed, or at the very least, consider the recommendations for the closure of ICU and OB units at Santa Paula Hospital. Closing services at a rural hospital contributes to the national statistics and does not address the systematic deficits of the HCA budget. The root of these issues, I believe, lies in the deficits coming from delayed payments from Medi-Cal, Medicare, and private insurance companies. Another issue is the cost of living within the area, which results in the younger generations holding off on having kids because housing and living expenses are so high. The argument that VCMC is only 15 miles away overlooks a critical factor of time in medical emergencies. Distance isn't the sole determinant. Timely access to specialized care is crucial. Additionally, expecting residents to travel outside the county or further poses logistical challenges, and especially to our lower income neighbors in the Santa Clara Valley. Santa Paula might be 15 miles away, but without traffic, that's 20 minutes. 30 minutes here from Fillmore, and Piru 40. Hospital executives say births can still occur at Santa Paula Hospital within the emergency room, but relying solely on emergency staff who do not have the specialized training of OB nurses and doctors, potentially compromising maternal and infant health. Also, transportation of patients to VCMC after that adds logistical and financial burdens, particularly on our vulnerable communities. HCA's mission emphasizes serving disadvantaged communities, yet the budgetary constraints hinder fulfilling this mission effectively. Pursuing avenues to recognize outstanding payments from the state should take precedence over imposing additional financial burdens on patients. The $5 million savings that are proposed for the closure of the units makes up only 0.4% of the HCA's budget. As a taxpayer, I think this is an acceptable cost for our unrepresented communities. In conclusion, while budgetary challenges are undeniable, especially with the state's outlook over the next couple years, prioritizing the well-being of Ventura County residents should guide our decisions. I urge you to consider the implication of the proposed closures and the community's access to essential healthcare services. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Just in time. Thank you very much. With that said, we have no other comments with regard to this presentation. And again, I want to thank
Mayor.
both Dr. and Mr. Zimmerman for presenting this evening.
Mayor.
A lot of information.
I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but if council members do have some questions for our presenters, could we ask them?
Yeah, I mean, we don't normally question presenters, but
Oh, okay.
looking at Tiffany, but I think, is that?
Oh, okay. All right, if you don't mind, thank you. I had a question for Mr. Zimmerman regarding, have there been projections about the population growth in the Santa Clara Valley? Just wondering how that's factoring into the plan, of course, for the hospital. If you could just speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've looked at that on the growth in particular. There's large, at least today, planned development of Santa Paula Hospital, about 2,000 homes. I think we've done the analysis on it. If you do statistically on how many births, in particular, looking at OB and the growth of the population, that would bring about two?
If we do a quarter of the deliveries, it would be 2 deliveries.
Yeah, it'd be 2 deliveries a month based on that population growth. Now, to be mindful, you know, we deliver about a quarter of the total deliveries that occur in the entire valley. And so the balance of those, and we look at where they go, very few are headed to the LA County line there. So the majority are going into Ventura and Oxnard today as we speak.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And sorry, just one other follow-up question for you,
that's
Dr.
over here.
Finkhauser. Thank you.
So-
I appreciate,
So-
Mayor, thank you for letting me just ask another question. And I know as you've heard the comments and those about safety issues. So sort of, I guess maybe like in layman's terms, with the closure of an ICU unit, but with an emergency room and operating room still operating, you know, for patients that go code blue or sort of in those emergency situations, how does that work? How do we foresee that happening?
I'll
That would
turn
be.
that over
I
to
think
you.
that's a question that most folks have in the community. How does that work when you still have critical operations and things happening? I understand transfers to VCMC, but can you tell us what can happen in the hospital?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilmember Villasenor. The emergency room currently manages those types of severe conditions that require an emergency response. I mean, code blue is, of course, when there's a cardiac arrest, but there's also respiratory issues and other, anaphylaxis type of reactions, and the emergency room does manage those. The nursing response right now includes nurses that are ICU trained, and we do have plans to keep an ICU trained nurse in a leadership position in the hospital. And certainly in the operating room, we'll do, what we do today, which are cases that very rarely end up in the ICU. I think in the rare case that a patient would need to be in the ICU, they would be stabilized. We would have our anesthesiologist there, of course, and they would be transferred to VCMC. That again would be a very, very rare case that in the types of surgeries that are done at Santa Paula Hospital. But I just, I guess from my perspective, one of the important things is to note, I'm a clinician. I've been doing this for 33 years now, so this is not, it's not lost on me that there's emergencies that happen at the hospital and that there are conditions that require very rapid response. And those are things that the leadership team is committing, or is committed to, preparing for in that setting. It is also of note that Clínicas, who cares for a very similar safety net population that we do, has been delivering their babies at either CMH and for the last 3 years at St. John's Hospital, but they've been delivering their babies in Ventura or Oxnard for the past 15 years. So this is not something that will be, a new introduction into the safety net population. We do believe that that's still a safe distance for our patients to be delivered at VCMC.
Thank you. I appreciate these answers.
Really good questions, and I heard the statement that you made at the Board of Supervisors, and I think those are all very good and appropriate and valid questions, and I want to reassure you that we're mindful of safety. I'm a doc who's committed my entire career to caring for the safety net population. This is very, very important to me, that we promote health equity, that we're mindful of what the safety net population that we're tasked with caring for, or we're charged with caring for, needs. And we believe that this is the leadership team believes that this is really the best utilization of Santa Paula Hospital to serve the community with a mind for those who face barriers to care.
Thank you.
I have a question. It could potentially go to either one of you. It was more about just the outlook for what the proposed harvest development will look like for the new Santa Paula Hospital. I believe one of you may have addressed the potential for adapting to demand under a newer model that's proposed at the current hospital. Does that also maybe imply that should demand change in the future regarding the proposed closure of services, could potentially lead to a reassessment in the future, even of those services? Not necessarily wholesale, but just
Right.
as a, like, there's adaptability in the new model.
Yeah, so some of our visioning around the new hospital is to not landlock, if you will, or put it into a structure where it cannot adapt to the changing needs of the community there. So just as illustration, if you go to a hospital, an older hospital, if you go to LA, one of those hospitals, they look like Tetris blocks put together in trying to build and expand those things, not very orderly, and a very expensive approach to how to develop a hospital there. What we have is that we've got a clean slate right now, and so with our developer, we've looked at this and said, hey, this is our proposal. If we're going to go with these service lines today, what would it look like if I need to add an OB ward onto it, right? or an ICU or so forth. So we have that envisioned into the model of the plan. And some of the hard or base construction, this gets a little detailed, construction costs are to build out some of the infrastructure so it can expand, so we're not starting anew. So it truly can be, if you want to call it modular approach, that it can expand based on it. The vision of the hospital is to say this next hospital should be around for 30 to 50 years. So I don't know in 50 years what it will look like, but it will have a platform and an infrastructure to allow some adaptability and growth there that won't be prohibitive in cost to start anew. Is the way we're looking at that. So the base cost associated, or the base modeling of the hospital, is to build some of this, kind of expansion platform in it today. So we don't have to revisit it into the future. Also, that lends itself, it's not insignificant in the amount of regulation that oversees a hospital. So if we put in some of that today with future changes, hopefully those would be grandfathered in and we would not have to start anew if we needed to develop and expand the hospital. So that's the proposal today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything, Councilman? Okay. All right, again, thank you very much for the presentation. I think we've learned a lot on that and a lot to digest, but thank you. So with that said, we are now moving on to public comments. And I do have, and again, the public comment session is for the public to speak here with regard to issues that are not on the agenda, but yet are still under the purview of City Council. So I have one, Sherry Wright, I believe yours is public comment. As you're coming to the podium, Sherry, I want to just run a quick question by our city attorney. We have another request to speak on an item that's on the consent agenda. Can I just have her speak during public comment? And so we don't have to pull it off the agenda, off the consent. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you. And we've got
Good evening.
3 minutes here.
My name is Sherry Wright. I live at 319 4th Street, a home that backs up against a mountain, and we own a home on Fernglen Circle, which is a development right below a hillside, and both homes are considered within an ember zone, which is labeled as such because it is within 1 mile of a natural area. I wanted to bring attention tonight to the fact that the city has not done weed abatement on city-owned property, nor have they enforced weed abatement in general, and I'm curious why this is no longer a priority. We've had significant rain the last couple of years, which obviously brings growth, yet city property remains untouched even after the June 1st deadline. The hillside along A Street below the school district has burned more times than I can count, and that hillside has not been maintained by the city for at least 2 years. The brush is growing beyond the shoulder, actually crossing into the traffic lane. I did see Keith's fire department notification in the Gazette, which I appreciate, Keith, but it's extremely frustrating when our own city ignores complying with their fire department's recommendations. Adding to my concern is the fact that as a city, we promote the sale and use of fireworks, which, safe and sane, can cause fires. And when you add in the excessive number of illegal fireworks, that risk becomes extreme. According to the state fire marshal, the city is surrounded by a very high risk, and it is imperative that we maintain defensible space. With the recent explosion in the cost of homeowners insurance and reports of cancellations, it is critical that weed abatement is enforced on all property, specifically for those of us with homes near areas of concern. Any insurance claim is a cause for cancellation and would potentially leave us uninsured. Insuring a home within close distance to a hillside or mountain is not only super costly, but the location prohibits us from acquiring insurance with most admitted insurance companies within the state. I would like to ask for this topic to be placed on an agenda so that the public can be informed of your decisions as they affect our property and potentially our lives, as well as the lives of the firefighters who serve our community. I would expect in the event of a fire of this sort that the city's liability for non-compliance could be significant, and I would like you to help me understand why it's been neglected.
Sherry, thank you very much.
I have a quick follow-up question, Sherry.
I
The-
provided copies of pictures too. So
Sure, yeah, I just was curious about the particular properties you're talking about, the hillside below the school, below the softball fields. And then there's another one up on Foothill. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, when you go down A Street,
Mhm.
like across from where the fireworks display is, that whole hillside along there, I believe that's all city-owned, all along there. The school district's up at the top. So all that, the brush is literally growing across the white line of the shoulder out into
Right.
the.
That's the
it's
property that in particular you're talking about. Was there another one in particular we're talking about on Foothill?
All over town. There's
Well,
one on
right,
Foothill.
right, yeah. But in particular, I just was curious about ones you're talking about this
Yes,
evening.
but for those residents who have homes in those areas, it's concerning.
Of course.
And, like on that hillside, the school district owns the top portion, which they haven't done it for 2 years either, that I've been watching. So it's concerning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the next speaker, Diane Sutton. I know you wanted to speak on items on the consent agenda, but we don't want to pull that matter off the consent agenda, so we'll just have you come up and speak during public comment. Did that make sense? And for
To get my
those,
big girl pants on to do this. I do not like speaking, but I need to practice. But I was perusing the agenda, and I saw this about the ordinance coming up for the garage sales. And I thought it was somewhat of a long arm reach for the city to do an ordinance as based on a complaint about the signs. Unless there's something else going on, I thought I was a little heavy-handed, and that a suggestion, like I know so much, but is to have people at least register their garage sales and put down a deposit, which would include a fee for the code enforcement. And at the end of the weekend, maybe they can drive around and pay for that code enforcement. Make sure that their signs are down. They come in for a return of their deposit after code enforcement verifies that those are down. And if I can say one more thing, I'm getting really hard of hearing, and I wondered, and I'm probably the only one here that can't hear, I don't know if I turned around, but maybe consider closed captions on the television. I don't think that would, I think that's just an app. But that's just it, a comment. Okay? Thank you.
we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, that concludes our public comments. We will now move on to item number 7, City Council reports, recommendations, and comments. So if council has any reports, let me, maybe by raise of a hand, let me know, and I'll hold off. Nobody?
I do have one. The last meeting, I requested a potential addition of an item to form maybe like a Blue Ribbon Advisory Committee for the Ventura County Hospital. And I think it's still something that I would like to see. The presentation we saw tonight was very well thought out. I think there's a lot of input from the community that not necessarily is being missed, but that gets either misinterpreted or maybe not fully understood. There was a question I asked tonight about potential expansion of the new hospital that I imagine has been there. Obviously, they had a very well-prepared answer, but is either not being communicated to the public or the public's concerns not being understood to communicate well what their plans are. And so more of it is like an advisory to the Blue Ribbon Committee. Obviously, that project's not part of our budget, but there's a lot of public interest in it, and it's I think it would be a great service to our community to form an ad hoc committee to kind of help shape what the future looks like from the sense of the human aspect that people believe or perceive might be missing, even though, in my opinion, I don't think it is. But there's a lot of misunderstanding, and it's something new that I think it would behoove us to consider. So I would like to put that discussion, if if we consider it on a future agenda, hopefully the next one in July.
Agree.
I am also, yes, supportive of that. And actually, Mayor, there's someone in the audience who's a member of the Blue Ribbon Task Force, Ms. Munoz, and maybe she can tell us sort of how that works or who the representatives are on it. Have there been?
Well, I mean, that could be something that would be on a future item.
Okay, yeah. So, sorry. I'm supportive of more discussion on an agenda.
Okay, so we'll see that on a future agenda item. We had 3 council members who were in agreement. So, okay, thank you. Anything else from council on reports, recommendations, and comments? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item number 8. That would be our consent calendar, and I would like to make a motion to approve our consent.
Okay, so moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Consent calendar has been approved. Okay, so that takes us to item number 8F, adoption of City Resolution 24-4006, establishing the gain appropriation limit for fiscal year 24-25 and senior, is it GAN or GAINS? GAN. GAN. Appropriations limit, fiscal year 24-25.
That was on consent. Creekside.
So sorry, okay. Then moving on to item number 9A, new business, public hearing, further consideration of tentative tract map for the creation of 134 parcels for residential development known as Creekside. We'll turn that over to Brian McCarthy.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, and City of Fillmore. As mentioned, this is the Creekside Residential Development Project, Development Permit 2004 and tentative tract map 6053. This is the 5th and final hearing for this project, for a residential project under state law. And this project has been through a significant amount of hearings, being that this is the 5th. And at each hearing, going through Planning Commission and then through City Council last January, the applicant has made improvements to the plans every step of the way. So everything that City Council has asked for, everything that Planning Commission has asked for, and staff has asked for along the way, they've accommodated, and they've made a lot of concessions along the way. So here we are, the 5th and final hearing, and I'm going to present to you just the items that you recommended at the last City Council hearing. We'll focus a little bit on those, and then I'll highlight some of the off-site improvements that are being made by this applicant. And I'll skip some of the stuff you've already seen, but if you want more slides, look at the architecture, I can keep going after that. So the project is located in the North Fillmore Specific Plan area. It's over 20 acres. It's up there right adjacent to Sespe Creek, north of the Nove or Amron facility, and it's got residential projects abutting some of its boundaries. It's subdivision map 6053, creating 134 parcels for residential development. It has open space lots for dual purposes of drainage control and for recreation. There's roadway-related improvements, bicycle paths, and the development permit is what will govern the actual construction of the homes. 134 homes will be constructed, along with 18 accessory dwelling units. The changes that were made or requested at the January 23rd City Council hearing, I'll just go through those one by one. There were a total of 4. Number 1, the development impact fees were previously to be locked in for 2 years as a vesting tentative map. The applicant has agreed to remove the word vesting from the project title, and so therefore it's just a tentative tract map. So that's significant because it waives their right to have a vested right to the regulations that occur today. So as regulations may change in the near future, they'll have to continue to meet compliance with those regulations. Same goes for development impact fees. Development impact fees would have been locked in as a vesting map, but they will be subject to development fees in effect at the time of building permit. So we're looking at updating those now as well. So by the time they come in for building permit, they'll be seeing the latest and greatest. Comment 2 was related to the front yard courtyards. There were some homes that didn't quite have the expanded porches that we like to see here in Fillmore, so there was a suggestion that we have options for courtyards built into the landscaping. So the applicant has gone back and updated landscape plans, and they came up with 2 different options, and these apply to the Plan 1 and Plan 2, with both of those are single-story homes, as well as the Plan 5 farmhouse. And the image of those 2 courtyard options are shown here. So you can see the seating areas generally in front of the front window, just adjacent to the door and opposite the garage. So 2 different versions there. And the trees will provide the shade features. And those are included in your packet, in the architectural drawings that would be approved as part of the project. The third comment was to provide a design element to the common area seat wall that would prevent skateboarders or other vandalism that would occur. And you see these commonly on other seat walls and common areas. And those are to put the metal guards there. So that'll protect the concrete seat walls. And those are added to the landscape plans. And the fourth and final recommendation from council was to explore with staff whether 4 of the single-family homes could be deed restricted to be affordable units, meeting our inclusionary housing ordinance, as opposed to just providing the 1-bedroom ADUs, meeting all of the affordability requirements. There was also a concern that those ADUs were also upstairs. So there was a thought to that as well. So that played into this. The applicant's solution to this was to provide additional plans. So they developed a Plan 7, which is a single-family home, 1,500 square feet. That will be placed on lots 103 and 134. And that single-family home will be designated an affordable unit. On those same lots will be a detached ADU, 900 square feet, and that's a 2-bedroom. Both of these plans are single-story, so they're more accessible. And that will give you a total of 4 affordable units that are different from the attached ADUs. So they'll operate kind of as single-family homes mostly, and those are for sale lots. So the buyer of each lot 103 and 134 would be buying the whole package. They'd buy the single-family home and qualify for affordability with the detached ADU as well. And these are what those plans look like. So the Plan 7, they went with a Spanish elevation on these. So it's a more simplified version of the main plans, but still features all of the same things that we required: shutters, Corbel lights, and other authentic Spanish style. So that's the Plan 7 is a single-family home, and the Plan 8 will be situated in the rear yards, and that matches the architectural style. That's the floor plan of both the Plan 7 and the Plan 8. So again, these are meeting your affordability request for single-family homes.
Brian, I'm sorry, can
Yeah.
you go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
Go. I just want to point out, it's just a typo, but at the bottom it says, for Plan 8, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. It means 2 bedroom, 1 bath.
Correct.
Okay,
It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
2 bedroom, 1 bath, right?
Yes.
That's the detached ADU.
Correct.
Okay.
And this gives you an overall view of the total architectural site plan, which changed slightly. So highlighted in orange are lots 103 and 134. So again, those are the single-family homes with detached ADUs. And then you'll see kind of spattered throughout other lots that are highlighted in orange. And those are homes that will include the Plan 6, which is an attached ADU, which will be situated above the garage. And there are 16 of those.
Brian, I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation. I just want another question on that one. The teal, those that are sort of in a teal background, the difference between the orange and teal, I think it's just an affordability issue, or
Yes.
a level of income, right?
That's right.
Okay.
It's broken out by affordability. So the extremely very low income which is adding to our RENA numbers. We don't currently have any extremely low units, so these will be nice to show in our annual reports. And those are in the teal. And then the orange are the other low incomes. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. So there are a total of 136 homes. If you added them all together, 20 of them are affordable. And I'm just circling those 2 single-family lots there. And then a summary of all of these units all together. On the left-hand side is the total number of units, and on the right shows the affordable units. So this summarizes where they're located throughout the project, but they're also on the graphic we just saw. And then I'll just highlight on some of the off-site features of the project. They are doing bike improvements, so there'll be a bike path along the levee just south of the project. They're extending the bike path along Good Enough Road along the frontage, and they're bringing the bike path out through the Amron property. So they'll be acquiring a easement there to extend it out so that it almost loops entirely throughout the area. So we'll have that nice bike path connectivity. So that was a nice concession that they made to make those offsite improvements. They also agreed to improve B Street. So you'll notice today there's agriculture and is it Amron? I think it's on the east side that's unimproved. So they're going to improve that whole east side, which includes storm drain, curb gutter, and landscaping. They're also going to be improving Good Enough Road with curb, gutter, landscaping, and a bike path. So these are the prominent features that the general public will see just driving by. Other offsite improvements include the sewer. So you may know that we have an impacted sewer line under C Street. So this will clear that sewer line. It will upgrade the capacity, and that capacity will serve not only this project, but the rest of the North Fillmore specific plan area, as well as any other future growth, such as ADUs throughout the city that tap into this C Street sewer line. So they're doing that work up front. That basically completes my overall summary of the project, which included your changes from January and some of the offsite highlights. The project is compliant with the California Environmental Quality Act. We relied on the environmental impact report that was prepared for the North Fillmore specific plan area, and we did an addendum to that North Fillmore specific plan just a couple of years ago, and none of the project features exceed any of the environmental impacts already assessed.
Great.
So we find that it's exempt from CEQA. Staff's recommendation is to receive the staff report, open the public hearing, and receive testimony. Adopt Resolution 243982, approving an exemption from CEQA, and approving Development Permit 2004, subject to conditions of approval. Adopt Resolution 243983, approving tentative track map 6053, subject to conditions of approval. And I can answer any questions, or I can go through any more project features if you like.
What I'd like to do at this point, thank you very much, Brian, for your presentation. I'd like to know if any of the council members have any questions for Brian on the report.
I had
thus
one
far.
question.
Thank you.
So, Brian, on item P2 on the large drawings, it said to maintain consistency with the North Fillmore specific plan, perimeter lots 1 through 41, 90 through 98, 101 through 110, and 110 to 133. A rear yard, second floor, or balcony or roof top deck shall be standard.
Yeah.
What about, my question is, what are the other two lots, 99 and 100? They're in that little,
Are they on the perimeter?
yeah, I believe so.
If they're on the perimeter, we can go ahead and add them to that condition, because that's the intent. Those ones, I believe we may have actually looked at, that one might be a privacy intrusion because it's backing up to lot 101. So that was the thought there, was we didn't want balconies to be looking down into somebody else's yard. So I think that's why we excluded those.
And
Yeah.
the one P19, I believe, says it's an option, although it's not included in there, so, all right, that was my.
Yes. Yeah, you can still do them as options, but we wanted them standard on the ones that you outlined. Yeah.
Your only questions? No.
Well, I had one more, and
Sure.
on the farm, no, farmhouse, or the Spanish, where there's three round windows on the side. And I don't know if it's only me, but to me, those three arch windows, seems like that part of the house just got, it looks off, because the other windows are square and these are three. I don't know if it's just me or not. I mean, it's not a big deal to me, just.
Yeah, the applicant's architect is here, but that was actually a staff comment to add more variety to the windows, so you have squares and rounded windows.
And did that
Yeah.
Like if they were all round, it'd be nice, because
Yeah.
it pointed out to me that the round windows do look more Spanish.
Yeah, it was meant to look more authentic Mission with the kind of the recessed look, just to make it look different from some of the other ones. But
And
yeah, it's,
those are good, but I do like all of them round, or I don't know what the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, that's all.
the
Okay.
applicant and the architect are both here too. They can speak to that.
I mean, could all of them be round? I mean, would be, is it more of a cost to? Because I like the round windows, but I mean, just that one part is, and I just don't drive down the streets looking at the windows.
Well, how many years were you on the planning commission?
Notice that if I was just driving down the street, but since it's here in the drawings.
So I understand. Mike Cantrell with WHA Architects. It's very subjective, right? I think we originally started with square top windows, but through the process, it was asked to add the arch top windows. As an arch top window, to answer your question, I think, can they all be arch top? The short answer is probably no, because what happens is those are fixed windows, because we can't move them up and down, right? So that can't be in a bedroom because we can't egress out of it, kind of thing. That's probably in a volume space. It's subjective, so is there a lot going on? There is. Can you simplify it and square top those? You can. But you can't do it to the bottom window. They asked for specifically for that Juliet balcony on that particular southwest elevation, so.
All right.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Stuck out to me, I was,
Now, ask him how many years he was on the planning commission.
Okay, how many years were you on?
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. Any other questions? Okay, any other questions from other staff?
I do, Mayor. Yes, I just have one. Thank you. And this is in the conditions of approval. Thank you very much, Brian, for just comprehensive conditions of approval. As I read through them all, I thought, wow, there's there's a lot that a developer needs to do, which is very good. And I appreciate that for the affordable housing, very detailed conditions of approval to really lay out the process of how this is going to work to ensure that these units are affordable. But my question is on, let's see here, page 275, affordable housing AH8. Basically, it says, the developer shall be afforded alternative methods to satisfy the project's affordable housing obligation through one of the following or a combination of them. And the first is if there were a payment, if we had an in lieu housing or an inclusionary housing fee, okay. And then there's a part two, and I just I got a little bit muddled in the language, and maybe you could see what that means. I guess it's a alternative method to satisfy the affordable housing obligation. I just didn't understand what that meant.
Yeah, and the affordable housing conditions they are an art, and a lot of us go through and we keep reading and rereading them, and we actually consulted with a housing expert who does affordability qualifications, and she helped us out on the Groves project. So she read these as well, and it's been through city attorney. The two primary, the paramount issues there in 8.2 can be distilled down to two simple things that the way I understand it is that it's saying that the affordable homes that are going to be built, either for sale or the ADUs, are used to meet the project's inclusionary housing ordinance requirements, no matter which phase they're in. They'll apply to the whole project. That's really
So
all
what,
that.
what phase of the build, you mean?
Well, when any phase that they're built in, they
Okay.
apply to the project's requirement as a whole.
Okay. Okay. I think I get that.
So the project has to do 15% affordable, and there are 20 affordable units. So whenever those units come up for construction, so in other words, they're not building 15% every time they build a phase, let's say.
Oh, that 15%
Right.
have to be there.
They're not building them as they go. They've got it all mapped out for the entire project.
Okay.
So looking at the project as a whole, the 15% is met by way of
By
providing
way of the
these in
whole project.
when they occur, yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. That makes sense.
Does that help?
It does. It was really hard to get through that
Yeah.
paragraph, but
Yes.
now I understand. Okay.
And the second primary point of that A2 is that the purchasing of any of these lots for the affordability will have a buyer's covenant agreement recorded on that lot. So that if it's 45 years for a for sale unit and 55 years for a rental, it'll be on title that that's an affordable unit, and it has to meet the published income qualifications that are updated yearly by HCD.
Okay.
So they'll be required to update paper on an annual basis. Yeah.
These owners. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I had a question about the proposed green spaces, I guess.
Yes.
I think it came up in the discussion at the last meeting about maybe the type of dedicated sport area. What was the final? I might have just missed that when I browsed through volleyball. It looks like.
Yeah, it remained a volleyball court.
Okay.
I think there was some discussion whether it could be basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And we checked into whether that would be an issue in terms of permeability and stormwater control, and it could go either way.
Right.
But it was still presented as a sand volleyball court.
Okay.
And that wasn't changed last time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And that this whole area would be subject to maintenance by the HOA, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then, if you wouldn't mind, just in the previous slide, you talked about the sewer improvements along C Street. I don't know if you would mind just kind of explaining what that might look like and when that would potentially occur in the development process.
So that'll occur prior to any occupancy. So most likely they'll start grading and working the site for quite some time, and meanwhile they'll be lining up the sewer improvements. So there's more details. This was just meant as an illustrative stretch
Right.
of what's being looked at. So there's more details that occur on plan sheets 61 and 62 to show what those pipe upsizings are going to be. But it'll be prior to occupancy, because any addition to this line is considered an impact to that line.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, at this point, what I'd like to do is go ahead and open up the public hearing, and I do have 3 speaker requests, although I believe we have, one is Mike Cantrell. Yes. Yes. So we have 2 gentlemen who are here to speak. Are you just continuing from Brian left off, or are you actually, I'm not going to limit you to the 3-minute time thing here with your.
No, I think I'll be very brief. Brian did a good job of explaining the changes that we made to the project. And I do want to thank the council, thank the planning commission. I think all the comments have really resulted in a much better project. And Brian for having the patience to deal with me through this too. So, but any questions you have or anything else, certainly ask them and I'll come back up. But thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then Mike Cantrell, care to add on that or speak more?
Answer questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions for those from?
Mayor, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment. I just wanted to say a thank you to Mr. Cantrell for hearing me at the last public hearing we had, and for Williams Homes for changing the plans to allow for those 4 units of family, right? More than one bedroom, family accommodations, and single-story accommodations. I think it's just really wonderful. Thank you for listening to the community. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have one other public speaker, Gabrielle Vinon. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly? That's okay. Okay. And again, you have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So hi, my name is Gabrielle Vignon, and I am here as a representative of the Fillmore and Piru Task Force. I also want to say thank you. Thank you for keeping us informed about the housing element and the revisions, and thank you for listening to the community and making changes, and thank you for your letter of June 5th, 2024, in response to our letter of March 5th, 2024. That letter was regarding affordable housing component of the Creekside subdivision. We appreciate the detailed and careful research and responses to our questions and comments. We gained a better understanding of the adopted North Fillmore specific plan and its inclusionary housing and ADU regulations. We understand the inclusionary housing mix has recently been adjusted, as explained, to 21 bedroom ADUs to 2 3-bedroom single-family homes and 2 detached 2-bedroom ADUs with 16 attached 1-bedroom ADUs. We are particularly grateful for information that was either corrected or misunderstandings that expanded our knowledge. And I have a list of those which I will not read out, but I will email you this letter tomorrow. While the city does believe that the recorded covenants will provide the necessary supervision and legal mechanism to ensure that homeowners comply with the ADU's affordable requirements, our task force remains a little concerned about fair housing compliance. How will prospective tenants become informed about this opportunity of the ADUs for rent? Will the tenant selection be done by the homeowner? Is there support for the homeowners with no experience? The city does state that it is every landlord's duty to comply with applicable laws, and any homeowner who offers a dwelling for rent at any level of affordability is required to comply with all applicable state and local laws. So we just heard about the HCD requirements. That doesn't acknowledge that California has very complex landlord-tenant regulations, and that potentially a typical home buyer of one of these single-family homes may have no experience in that. They might not have ever been a landlord or know where to get the information or support. So while our recommendation may not be appropriate as a condition of approval for the vesting, or maybe now not vesting, tentative map, we do urge that the city considers the mechanism for future support to the homebuyers and the tenants after the lease up. Lastly, we do request some priority for the inclusionary housing units for people who reside or work in Fillmore, particularly the 2 to 3-bedroom units that are proposed as single-family homes.
Gabriel, you have 30 seconds.
We appreciate your support on affordable housing in our community, and we are available to meet with you about this project or any other future projects. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've heard from the public. Are there any other citizens from the community that want to speak on this during this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, then what I would like to do then is go back to council for debate and discussion and hopefully a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion.
I have one question. The concerns about the interactions between tenants and property owners came up at the last meeting. Well, I don't think that it makes a lot of sense for the burden to fall upon the city to enforce the California regulations. I do know that education, just understanding how that stuff works, it is very complex. But is that something that potentially the HOA could just provide educational pieces as it's developed going forward, just as a, hey, this is how these ought to operate? I don't understand how the HOA might fully develop, but that's probably their most close contact.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the association might be very similar to an owner, not keeping up with the laws as they roll every year. I think starting with the project, certainly the developer can provide that information, but it's just going to be in the future. I just don't know if that's a HOA rule, if it solves the problem. I think in a lot of cases that, the city is the kind of the housing component, and we can certainly make sure that the homeowners are directed to work with the city as the rules change on an annual basis.
Yeah, and I think that's I think mostly what I'm considering is just more of like the informational piece. Like the HOA just has a form of staying in contact with maybe the housing element, which then
Sure.
Can just transmit information.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of it is rules that are not developed at the city level, and a lot of it's probably going to have to be elevated. I don't know, Kevin, you might be able to speak to that a little bit.
If I could.
Not really.
Yeah, because the city doesn't
have
know
any
landlord
answers to
tenant
that.
laws either. That's not
Right.
an obligation we should take on. I mean, there is the area housing people who we've used with other projects to help get qualified people and to advertise for low income availability that maybe the owners can work with, but it's gonna have to be on them. I mean, I think there are a lot of websites and things to help people, especially specific to ADUs. HCD has a lot of information about all that, but I appreciate you saying the city can't manage that because we
Right.
don't have the resources.
Yeah. Managing it is a completely different thing, just
Yeah.
more of the informational piece and keeping up with a lot of the changes. Hopefully there's just a good relationship that develops between the HOA and the city.
Any other conversation?
I just wanted to follow up on this one in that when it comes to the actual verifications, right, that need to happen on an annual basis, I think somewhere within the staff report, within the talk, there was a consultant, right, that we similar to Citrus Grove.
That's right.
Okay. Sure. Go ahead, Brian. A little bit more info.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. We have the developer could propose something as well when they do the initial purchases, but we have a consultant that will review everybody's qualifications, at least get us off on the right foot so that everybody moving in starts off right, and then we'll see how it goes from there. And the HOA is the front line for the residents, but they'll often call us and we can share with them the HCD requirements for income. Maybe they can post it somewhere. There can be pretty easily disseminated information through a website, through maybe there's some HOA or community link in kind of thing. But we can continue to work on that kind of stuff. Yeah, getting information out.
Yep.
It's definitely important.
Yep. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Yeah, and I had the same concerns about, combining a privately owned residence along with a mandated ADU, low-income ADU. It just seems like, and I understand it will be easier at the beginning where we're launching things just as you explained, Brian. But I'm worried about what's happening, 10 years down the road when, let's say, the primary property owner sells the house and you've got a new owner of the house. Now, who's keeping up with this? Or when the renter moves out, who's keeping up with who's moving in? I don't have a clear understanding on how that's going to work.
It is on title, so when anyone
Right.
going through escrow, it would be disclosed, and
Right.
hopefully there's an attorney involved somewhere along the way for any subsequent purchases that will get flagged. But it does get missed. Sometimes it's not unheard of that something sells at market rate.
Yeah,
And then they have to go back and figure out, where the money went. But
yeah.
but it's at least on title. It's deed restricted. And so that's kind of the most we can do at this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I understand that. I think
Yeah.
it sounds like a great idea and a way to meet our RENA numbers, provide low-income housing, for the community. And we'll just see how it plays out. I'm going to fast forward 10 years from now and say, okay, how well has this worked? So, anything else from council?
I was just going to add, Mayor, that as we go into the world of ADUs and affordable housing ADUs in different cities, perhaps the county or larger organizations will see this as a need for some
Yeah,
sort of
hopefully,
oversight or something
yeah.
down the line.
Mhm. Okay, so may I have a motion? Yeah, please.
Okay, I can make that motion, and I recommend that City Council receive the staff report, adopt resolution number 243982, approving an exemption from CEQA and approving development permit number 20-04, subject to conditions of approval, and also adopt resolution number 24-3983, approving tentative track map number 6053, subject to conditions of approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. And I am now officially closing the public hearing. I didn't do that earlier, did I? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I feel like congratulations should be in order. Okay, so moving on to item number 9B. City Council terminating the City of Fillmore local emergency declaration resulting from severe winter storms in early February 2024. And I'll turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight's recommendation is to adopt Resolution 244011 to terminate the local emergency originally declared by Resolution 243986 and extended by Resolution 243999 as a result of damage incurred by severe winter storms to the concrete bike path and pole fencing on February 5th, 2024. As you're aware, on February 4th, 2024, the governor declared emergency that included areas in Ventura County. Due to the extensive damage caused by rising floodwaters in Sespe Creek, the hazard that those damages presented to health, safety, and welfare of the general public, the city manager, as the director of emergency services, declared a local emergency on February 8th, 2024. The local emergency declaration was ratified by the City Council on February 13th, 2024, and extended by City Council on April 23rd, 2024. Since then, staff has attended a FEMA Cal-OES meeting regarding the process and requirements the city would have to adhere to in order to recover costs associated with the repair to the storm damage. FEMA's requirements would significantly delay the repair work and increase the cost of the project to repair the bike path and fencing. Accordingly, at this time, as the rainy season has passed and there's no longer a concern for further damage that may occur, staff recommends the City Council terminates the emergency declaration. And that concludes the report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Just as a quick update on where we're at with the repair, we're engaged with preliminary design, and we're targeting to have construction completed hopefully before the coming rains. And we'll be back to you with the adoption of the plans and specs before we go out to bid.
Great. Okay, any questions from staff? From council for staff?
I was just curious about, we considered the idea that FEMA Cal-OES reimbursements for emergency funds might prolong or, increase the cost of the considered project for repairs. Is there an estimate about what amount or percentage that we thought those increases might incur going through that process?
We did look at the cost, and we were putting it at more than double what it would originally cost us if we were to do it without the FEMA reimbursements. Not to mention that, but the significant delays that would be incurred from all the additional studies that would be required.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I do. I have a further question. Thank you. As we go out to bid and, like you said, kind of rebuild this, and we'll probably get more detail later, but maybe you could say just briefly, is there anything in particular that we're going to do to, help reinforce against, these storms that might be more common, and maybe we don't, what can be done really to mitigate additional damage next time it comes around? How's it going to be rebuilt?
Right. We were looking at, this section that was damaged in this recent, storm. It is on a jog out into the creek, or into Sespe Creek. It may include armoring that area to push the flow, the primary path of that one branch away from the bike path. That could be a solution. That's I don't want to get ahead of myself and the design team, but that might be something we take a look at.
Just glad that you're looking at
And
those.
deeper footings maybe on the bike path itself in
Okay.
certain areas.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. I just had, under the fiscal impact paragraph on the report, it indicates that the current estimate for repairs is $285,375, but I'm not recalling, I don't believe I saw it in the report. What was the FEMA proposal? What were they going to provide? What was their estimate?
Well, that was our estimate.
Right.
Based upon their requirements, we're estimating it'd be about double that.
But do we know what FEMA would have provided?
As far as reimbursement, I
Right.
think it would be the standard percent,
Okay.
which I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
But it's similar to what
Yeah, I guess it,
The sewer reimbursements look like percentage-wise?
I'm looking at the finance director,
Okay.
okay.
the lady with the money.
All right, well, thank you. Any other questions? Then,
I guess I'd just like to make a comment that it's frustrating to me, but I know to the public as well, that from the outside perspective is that the trail's been sitting there. I do applaud the staff for looking at, hey, what is the immediate impact, right? We could go down the line of maybe saving the city some budget, but in the end, it would potentially really cost the taxpayer twice as much because all of those funds come out of taxpayer pockets just in different ways, and then it comes back, right? So we saw immediate or a lot quicker flow of funds with the sewer project that we have, because I think there was a lot more immediate need. And I think this one in particular, though, while it may eat into our potential budget a little bit more, I think it's smart because it doesn't delay anything. And we've already seen how quickly we can make, good, smart changes down there without just trying to make our books look better. And I think that's, again, just the smart way to spend taxpayer dollars, more so than just only looking at what it means for the city. So thank you.
Thank
may I have a motion?
Okay, I'll move that the City Council adopt Resolution 24-4011 to terminate the local emergency originally declared by Resolution 24-3986 and extended by Resolution 24-3999 as a result of the damage incurred in the severe winter storm to the concrete bike path and pole fencing on February 5th of this year.
Okay, I have a motion. May I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to, where are we? To item 9C. This is consideration of City Council Resolution 244013, calling and giving notice of the November 25, 24 general municipal election and resolution requesting consolidation with the, I think it was presidential general election being conducted by the County of Ventura on the same day. I'll turn it over to staff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Fillmore residents. Yes, you are correct, Mayor. It would like to note that there's an error there. It is the presidential general elections, not the gubernatorial general elections.
Thank you.
I am here tonight to request the adoption of the two resolutions. This is in preparation for the general municipal election that will be held on November 5th of this year. The first resolution is to fulfill the requirement as a city to adopt a resolution calling and giving notice of this election. And the second resolution is to consolidate with the county for this election as it benefits the city to do so. This November, the voters will elect 3 members. This is due to the most recent transition from the at-large district election to, at-large to a district based election. These council members will be for districts 1, 2, and 5. And there's also has been a calendar provided on the staff report that includes important due dates and guidance. Lastly, we also included the estimated cost for this, and that is included on the upcoming budget cycle in this next fiscal year. This concludes my presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from council for staff? All right. Seeing we have no questions, appreciate the presentation, and we will entertain a motion.
Tiffany, would the resolution numbers suffice for the motion? Okay. I recommend that the City Council adopt resolution number 24-4013 and resolution number 24-4014.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, this matter passes. Okay, moving on now to item number 9D, Resolution 24-4008, approving the fiscal year 24-25 project list to be funded by the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. Turn it over to staff. Thank you.
All right, it's that time of year again. We get to adopt our SB1 funding budgets. We have identified that we're going to receive about $437,677 for fiscal year 24-25, and the Road Recovery and Maintenance Accountability Act, or Road Repair and Accountability Act, requires that every city adopt and file by July 1st a resolution saying how we're going to use the money. I want to remind you that this is just preliminary. It's subject to change. The Act provides for, you don't have to do what you said you were going to do, but you do have to have a plan and a commitment in order to receive the funding, and then we report in our expenditures report where the money actually went. So it doesn't lock us in. Just want to be sure that's always clear. The street list for next year's work focuses on maintenance in neighborhoods south of Highway 126. So starting at the west end of town and going as far as Pole Creek. Most of those neighborhoods are generally newer neighborhoods, but the pavement is getting to a point where it really needs some maintenance, like slurry, possibly chip seal. They're not the worst pavements in the city, but it is time to protect them and extend their life where it's not too costly. And so this street list pretty much is those neighborhoods, and subject to change as we get into final design next this fall. We'll probably be designing this in the summer and trying to bid it in the fall. We are also happy to say that we'll be augmenting the funding from the SB1 funds with $300,000 of CRISA non-STIP money, which is the COVID recovery that actually we've gotten through VCTC supporting us with Caltrans to convert that federalized money back to local funding and removing all of the federal stuff on it. And so that is in process. So we have a combined street project of about $737,000, which is important because if you bid anything less than $500,000 plus, you don't get bids. It's how busy everybody is right now. It's kind of like that supply-demand thing. So in addition, we are carrying over the Mountain View Sidewalk project that was previously allocated, as we haven't gotten that project done, and we'll be working on it next year still. So you have the full staff report before you. The request is to approve the resolution adopting the street list and the carryover project so that we can get it in before the July 1st deadline. I'll entertain any questions.
Great.
Roxanne, I have a question.
Sure.
So, the Village Square, was
Yes.
that a carryover project? Because I don't see it on this list.
That is in progress right now. We're going to be bidding and constructing that in the current fiscal year, so it's not considered a carryover project. It's already underway.
Okay, that was
So-
my big concern. I was looking at this, and I know
Yeah.
that neighborhood really, really needs it very bad.
It's still going, yes.
And-
This
and
year, though.
I guess as a follow-up to Albert's question, or maybe as a clarification, that project was from last fiscal year's approval of these similar funds.
Yes.
correct? Right.
And
so-
it's still moving forward.
Right, yeah.
Mhm. Once we get the contract awarded, it'll be locked and loaded, so the expenditure report, but we do the expenditure report in September, and those funds will be spent.
Right.
for the Village Square and all of those streets in that grouping.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Christina?
I do have a quick question. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Roxanne. So it was something that you had mentioned. You said that these streets are just maybe beginning to show those signs of need. But you mentioned they're not the worst streets in the city.
Right.
But so then that goes back to, but the worst streets in the city, are we handling them? Like you said, Village Square being one of them. That's this current fiscal year. But are there others that maybe didn't make this current fiscal year that are on this one included in here? Or how is that managed, as you know, sort of the ones who really physically you can see them that they really need it, and then those that, like, hey, we don't want to let them go too bad because we want to maintain them and not spend so much money on them just to make sure that they're maintained. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay.
It's through the pavement management system. So we're going to be embarking next year on an update to the pavement management system, because we review all the streets every 3 years and then reprioritize based on the results. And so we're going to be doing that next fiscal year as well. But in general, you need to have a good split between how much money you spend on maintenance to keep extending the life of the streets in their better condition, so they don't start rapid deterioration and all get super expensive to fix. The ones that have already fallen off the curb and are already rapidly deteriorated aren't going to be that much more expensive to do next year over this year, because they're already down there. And so we sort of allocate every other year, like focus on maintenance and then get to some of the worst ones and then focus on maintenance, so that we're doing a little bit of both. But when we only have like now, $600,000 to $800,000, it's a lot more cost effective to do all the same kind of, you can't really overlay one street and then do a bunch of slurry. It's not enough to mobilize a paving crew. And you can't do a couple of slurry streets and mobilize the paving crew. It's not enough to mobilize, so with the amount of funding that we have, it's better for us to focus on a maintenance project and then a repair project. It just leverages our funding better.
And it's super, super helpful to know and to understand, to be able to express to the public and those who might be contacting, saying, hey, wait a minute, my street looks worse, and I see that they're working on a street that's not so bad.
Correct.
So I really appreciate the answer.
Absolutely.
A quick question with regard to the terminology. So overlay is what is done for streets that are severely damaged or a lot of potholes, and the slurry is just done for these streets like we're seeing on this document right here.
Correct.
Just
It's a slurry is a maintenance surface that you put on that's
Right,
designed to wear off, and an overlay is where you grind off the broken pavement and put new pavement down.
Right. And obviously the overlay would be more expensive than
A lot more, yes.
Great, okay. Any other questions?
Not a question, I think just for clarity for the public to know, because I hear this a lot, like the Santa Clara behind Amici's, and I know the reason why, but can you explain why?
Oh, yeah, we've had needing to pave Santa Clara behind Amici's a long time, at that very easterly end of Santa Clara Street. There's a water line replacement that needs to be done in that street so that we don't pave it and then come back and trench it up and put the water line in. So we're trying to get the water line replacement done and then pave it as part of the water line budget. And so that's been delayed while we go through that design and build process. So we will get to that with that, and not with the RMRA funds. We'll be getting that street. That's in the CIP as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right.
Just one question, and you mentioned the pavement management system as a 3-year kind of plan, correct?
Correct.
The requirements for the overlay versus like a slurry are all outlined there, correct? As far as like how to identify the streets that are needing those repairs. Is that the overall governing document from the city level on identifying those as well? Does it already have the rules laid out for, hey, these are the ones that we're going to propose based on the criteria that already exists in that system?
They're not fixed like that. The pavement management system report identifies a pavement condition index, which is calculated based on, that year. So we did those in 2021 last. So a snapshot in time in 2021, and you can use the pavement condition index to look at the condition of each street relative to other streets in the same network that were inspected at the same time, and then make some prioritization. That's the starting point. Then we look at geography, we look at capital improvement projects like water lines and storm drain lines and things that need to be put in, or undergrounding projects, et cetera. And also finally grouping it to get enough of the same kind of work to leverage a big enough quantity to get bang for your buck. So the pavement management report is sort of like step one. And then there's a lot of other information and expertise that gets poured in to get to that final street list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any discussion between council? Are we ready for a motion?
Oh, okay. I'll move that City Council adopt resolution number 24-4008, approving the fiscal year 24-25 Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017 projects list.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, this agenda item passes. Thank you very much, Roxanne.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 8E. Approve and authorize, wait, let's see. Pardon? Did I say 8? It's getting late.
It's getting late.
Okay, correction, 9E. This is, let's see, reject all bids for the construction of project number 1901 Mountain View Sidewalk Improvement Project, and authorize combining this project with City Hall Plaza Restoration Project, and to re-advertise. I'll turn it over to staff.
Yep, I'm going to hang out here. So this isn't very good news. So we bid, last I talked to you, we were getting ready to bid 2 projects with the third on the way. And we did the Mountain View Sidewalk Project and then the City Hall Plaza Project, and they were both bid sort of on the same cycle. And then the bid openings were at the same time as well. Although we got a good response on the Mountain View Sidewalk Project, there was a hiccup in that the low bidder, which actually is the contractor that just completed the improvements over at the dog park, and they did a great job and they're very qualified, they neglected to address one of the details of the bid requirements about using a barricade service for traffic control, while the other bidders did, which makes them non-responsive. And then the second low bidder, which is, $80,000 more above the low bidder, protested and said, you can't use that low bid because he didn't follow the specifications, and it's kind of a valid point. But moreover, in the fact that we got these bids, but then we also didn't get any bids on the City Hall Plaza project, as I was reviewing both of those bid analyses, it dawned on me, these are both sidewalk projects. So like I was just saying, you want to aggregate your quantities to leverage better costs. Once you mobilize a concrete crew, you should be doing all your concrete. And I thought we need to combine these projects so that we can get bids on the City Hall Plaza along with the Mountain View. It's all the same kind of contract work. And so I'm sad I didn't think about that before, but I'm taking this opportunity to say I really believe we need to just reject the bids on the Mountain View sidewalk. I'm going to revisit that traffic control spec too, because it's a side street that probably doesn't need a barricade service, so I'll probably remove that requirement from the bid on rebid, which will help us with our price as well across all bidders, but also combine it with the City Hall Plaza, which also isn't going to require much traffic control because it's all on site, and rebid them, keeping 2 separate bid schedules because they're 2 separate funding pockets. And so you have Schedule A and Schedule B. We'll bid them all as one big project, with A plus being the qualified low bidder, and then we'll reserve the right to award either A or B or both at the council when we come back to you before award. So that's my recommendation tonight, is that we reject all the sidewalk bids and then we re-advertise them as one big project.
Thank you. Questions from council?
You essentially answered one of my question, which was about the different types of funding for the different projects. Could you just reiterate which funds were allocated for each project, just so the public is well aware?
Absolutely. So the Mountain View Sidewalk Project is funded through the RMRA SB1 funds, and then the Sidewalk here at City Hall Plaza has been allocated out of the American Rescue Plan funds, which is $150,000. So we'll keep those separate bid schedules, separate billings and invoices so that we can keep track of all that.
Okay, thank you.
And are there potential cost savings by bundling them together?
Yes, because you'll mobilize one crew and have it all, yes.
Christine, anything from you? Okay, thank you for that report, and any discussion amongst council before we are ready to entertain a bid? Okay, then I will.
Take a motion? Okay. All right. Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the rejection of all bids for the construction of project specification number 19-01 Mountain View Sidewalk improvements from Santa Clara Street to Ventura Street, and also authorize staff to combine the Mountain View Sidewalk Improvement Project and the City Hall Plaza Restoration Project into one bid package and to re-advertise for construction bids.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Villaseñor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this agenda item passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Okay, moving on to 9F. This is approve and authorize, County Row use agreement to install and interconnect conduit and fiber optic cable network. That was a mouthful. And city manager is handling this one. Okay, I've just been advised that I erred on the last one. I needed to open up to public comments. And did we, am I understanding that correctly?
Public comment for the last item.
We received one? Oh, my apologies. Arthur Apodaca, is that correct? Yeah. I am so sorry. I buried you in our already heard speakers, so we're backing up to let you speak on this agenda item.
I hope I'm not wasting your guys' time. I didn't realize it was going to be put on the agenda for rejection of all the bids. So on top of the traffic control item, there was other issues in the bid that weren't followed that I didn't really want to bring up, because if you guys were going to accept the traffic control issue, I feel like the other ones were more minor. But in your guys' specifications, you guys state in there that any subcontractor that has a price that's 0.5% of the total bid, they must be listed. And there was 2 items in his bid that he didn't list, which were over 3%. On the dog park, even though we weren't the second lowest bidder, I did reach out to the Public Works Department that was listed on Planet Bids to ask what those subcontractors were, because they weren't listed and I didn't get any response. So this time on this project, I did reach out to say that we were going to protest the bid because we were the second lowest bidder. And when we asked, they said we had to come here tonight, but I didn't know you guys were going to reject all of the bids. So I just, that was the reason why we showed up, to bring that to your guys' attention. Although, yes, it is a side street, and it doesn't require much traffic control. You know, some of the other bidders own all that traffic control that can be used. But with us having to list the traffic control sub, it really increases the price a lot. And also too, you know, with the other 2 subcontractors like traffic control, the traffic loop and survey, without listing those people, it kind of gives an unfair advantage. But if you guys are going to reject it, then I guess it's a moot point now. But just to kind of add, me and some other contractors, we kind of passed on the courtyard job because the plan is kind of not really, it's kind of like all over the place. So you have sidewalk that you're gonna install out on, you know, a city street. That unit price is gonna be a lot different than having to pour sidewalk in a grassed courtyard. So it's not really apples to apples. And maybe if the plan could be, I think the plan is it's on Planet Bid right now, advertised. So I know, when we look at that, it's not really the same. So I don't know if you guys are still gonna combine it, but the unit costs are probably gonna be different, or someone's just gonna go with a higher cost. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
And again, my apologies for not calling you up here before we moved on to the next agenda item. All right. Now we are moving on to item 9F, County ROW use agreement to install and interconnect conduit and fiber optic cable network. And I'll turn it over to City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we're asking City Council to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a right-of-way use agreement with the County of Ventura in a form approved by the City Attorney's Office to allow access to the city's right-of-way in exchange for 2 strands of dark fibers along the 486-mile county network route. Currently, this is part of the California State Middle Mile broadband network, and then we're going to be bringing fiber optics from Highway 101 out to I-5, and part of it has to come to the city of Fillmore, going down the railroad tracks and coming down Central Avenue. As part of that, we'll be able to get a couple of 2 dark lines for us to use for the future, any way that we see fit. The county has also entered into an agreement with a qualified private internet service provider. Partner they selected is Astound Broadband. That's the operator of a regional network. And Astound will also privately fund and build extensions from the county network into residential neighborhoods and business corridors, provide competitive, high-speed internet services, particularly focused on served areas such as Fillmore and Piru and parts of Santa Paula. So the county's reached out to us. They're in control of the project. They started this back in 2022, I believe, to get the grant funding from the state. We are asking again to approve the mayor to sign this right-of-way issue, and construction is looking to start in end of 2024, but the final joint build agreements with the state, which require right-of-way access, as contemplating the agreement, are being finalized right now. So we're looking to hopefully have this all done or started by the end of 2024, and then we'll reach out to Astound and some other people to see if they'd be able to provide any type of internet access on our city lines to our residents as well. So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Okay, does council have any questions for our city manager?
Without being an expert on fiber optics, I believe this might address lots of questions I've received, and kind of wondered myself that in construction of homes in the 21st century, maybe even, that how can they not include fiber optics? This kind of gets us rolling in the right direction, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Questions? Okay. I did have one question. Under fiscal impact paragraph, last sentence indicates the strands are reserved for non-commercial uses and cannot be leased, sold, or used for revenue-generating purposes. So is that excluding businesses? Am I reading that right? Or
it's that we can't sublet it and make money off of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Okay, I'm glad I was off on that. All right. Any further discussion from council? Then I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve and authorize the mayor to execute a right-of-way use agreement with the County of Ventura in a form approved by the City Attorney's Office to allocate access to the city's road in exchange for 2 strands of dark fibers along the 46-mile county network route.
I have a motion from Councilmember Mendez. I have a second.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilmember Corolla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this agenda item passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9G, approval of proposed year-end budget adjustments for fiscal year end 2023-24, and I'll turn this over to staff.
Good evening, council members. Mayor Broggi, I'm Deborah Cavaletto, Finance Director. Today, staff is recommending City Council approval of the proposed year-end budget adjustments for fiscal year 23-24. These adjustments in the staff report are to address items that have been unforeseen in the prior year budget process or larger than expected costs. For example, we have the Sewer Capital Improvement Fund, which we're requesting $275,000 to be transferred from the Sewer Diff Fund to cover costs associated with project management of the sewer emergency project, and that was provided by Wildan. These, of course, costs were not budgeted due to the timing of the event. In addition, we're asking for the Sewer Operating Fund a transfer of $635,000 from the Stabilization Fund to cover unexpected expenses that were not part of the fiscal year 23-24 adopted budget, again, due to the timing of the event. Those were related to Veolia providing oversight in the additional services relating to equipment rental and cleanup and disposal services. As you know, since the sewer had collapsed, they still need to provide those services. So you saw those machines running constantly day and night. And so that's where those costs are associated with as well. And both of these additional costs have been submitted to FEMA for the reimbursement. As of right now, our formal request for public funding has been transferred up to now doing the scope and costing. So what they're doing right now is looking all over our paperwork, and then they'll decide what costs that they will be obligating to us. In that time, if we agree to it, we will then do what they call a Category Z. They look at our management expenses as well, that they give us a portion of it, which we provide backup to that we did for the costing for the going to the meetings and site visits and that nature. If we do not agree with it, we do have an opportunity to appeal for that as well. The next we have the fund for Water Operating Fund. This fund has enough appropriations that we're requesting just an additional approximately $125,000 for higher than budgeted costs associated with like electricity, some vehicle repair and maintenance, and equipment repair and maintenance as well, and services and supplies. And then we're also asking for additional appropriations for the general fund for the $233,871 to cover higher anticipated or unforeseen costs, those related to such as legal services or for contract services to help provide staffing for unexpected staff leaves that required. We need additional people just to keep normal operations alive. And of course, service and supplies, as you know, the cost of some supplies that we think are bought in the past are getting a little more expensive. But this item does fall under a financial management goal, and into my presentation and available for any questions. And sorry for
Thank you. Do I have any questions for staff from?
I do, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Question on the FEMA reimbursement. When we were speaking about it months ago, I believe Troy put out a percentage that the city would most likely have to own. It was pretty low. I want to say it was like in the 6.25%, if I'm right. Are we still on track to get that 94% reimbursement?
I'm hoping so.
To your
Again,
opinion.
they can also look at certain things. I believe we did follow our processes, but again, it all depends on how the costing goes upstairs. It means upstairs to FEMA. But again, I believe that we've had a strong enough case. We've met constantly with our FEMA representatives, even with Cal OES, and they've been very supportive, looking over the documents to ensure that right verbiage, right numbers, and to answer any questions they have right away. So again, I'm going to knock on wood. I feel that we do have good support.
Along the same lines, you mentioned kind of where it is in the process. I know it would be a little bit of speculation, but roughly maybe a percentage of like through the process, like whereabouts do you think we are?
Well, if it's in that stage, that's the stage. If
The
they
final.
look at it and say, okay, this is what we're going to obligate you, that's the top, that's very top. And then, again, once that's done, if we agree with it, then we go through what they call Category Z, get our management administration costs, they give you a percentage. So get that squared away and then do a close cost. And talking to Cal OES and the FEMA representative, they're right, they're ready. They go, get ready, start getting your timesheets ready and organized. It's because they want us to go as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Other questions? Okay, open for discussion amongst council? No discussion, I will entertain a bid. I mean, a motion.
$5.
I'll move that the city council approve the year-end budget adjustments for fiscal year 23-24.
I'll second.
A second?
I will second. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And opposed? Hearing none, this matter passes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 9H, consideration of tentative agreement between the City of Fillmore and International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 501, for the terms of the successor MOU covering the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2027, and adoption of job descriptions for certain classifications. I will turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councils and resident of the City of Fillmore. Tonight, I would like for you to consider adoption of Resolution 240009. The current MOU with the Local 501, which is our union, is expiring on June 30th. We did enter into a series of negotiations in the past couple months, and I'm happy to report that we've been able to reach a tentative agreement for a period covering July 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2027. So that's a 3-year contract agreement. We are required by law that such agreement, when the agreement is reached, for council to adopt that within 30 days. The union met with its members last week on June 3rd. No, it was June 6th, I'm sorry. And they did ratify the tentative agreement. And so tonight I'm here to request that you consider approval of that TA. Here's the summary of the changes that will be included in such agreement. We will be coming back with an actual final MOU once that's drafted, but this is the process that we take in order to get to that MOU. It's probably going to be a couple months once the Union Contracts Department reviews it, we review it, our legal department reviews it. So effective July 1st of this year, you would be approving a new salary base and classification, which was represented in the staff report. That is as a result of the compensation and classification study, which you received a copy of tonight as a receive and file. It was concluded on February of this year. Base salaries will be increasing to what's provided to you on the tentative agreement. Such increases will vary from 0.25% to 11%, with the most common raise being at 6%. And this is to bring those classifications that were under market to market. Any represented employee that's receiving less than 3% of their base pay increase will be brought up to a 3%. So, for example, if someone's receiving 0.25%, they'll receive a one-time non-personable bonus to make that adjustment to 3%, effective July 1st. Effective the first full pay period on July of 2025 and July of 2026, represented employee base salary will increase by 4% on each year. And there was an increase also negotiated on standby pay, which increased 75 cents from 2.75 to 3.50 an hour. And those are for the employees who are on call, on standby, who respond to our emergency calls of water. So that involves Public Works. There's also an agreement of a 200 increase per month effective July 1st for the health insurance benefits. For those who waive the health insurance, the payout will still remain the same and there will be no increase, and that will be to offset the premium increases. Also, we are working on some language to potentially look at a electronic callback system, but we need more data. The city needs some more data to contemplate that at a future year. We also have mandatory increases from the Public Employees Medical and Hospital Care Act, which is referred as PEMCA, and that will be updated. And there's some language that needs to be updated of housekeeping of policies that we are required by state regulation to update. And we also have to adjust a couple of items for uniform and CalPERS reporting. And we also negotiated a $5 increase for certification pay and a $5 increase for bilingual pay. And there has been a new addition of accrual level for longevity of vacation for those who have 20 or more years. And it's also adding contract language to the MOU that City Hall, so those employees who report to City Hall and the Active Adult Center will be receiving as a fringe benefit and paid holiday. The City Hall will be closed between Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve. The parties also, like I mentioned, agreed to add additional language to bereavement leave, which is what we're required to do by state legislation. And we are also requesting for you to consider reclassification and retitling. This was a result of the classification study that was completed. And the following positions will have a retitling or reclassification. So facilities maintenance worker is being reclassified from a maintenance worker 1. We have a new classification of maintenance worker 3. We also are retitling the Parks and Recreations Coordinator and Active Adult Coordinator to Community Services Specialist. There's a new classification of a Fiscal Technician. The Lead Maintenance Worker, it's a retitle from Senior Maintenance Worker. And we have a Public Works Meter Reader reclassification to a Maintenance Worker 1. We also provided you with new updated job descriptions for all of the classifications within this bargaining unit. Those have been reviewed. We're making sure that all of the job descriptions are compliant with what we're required, and we're addressing requirements of minimum requirements of work and working conditions and FLSA regulations as well. So that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And are there any questions from City Council? Okay. No questions. Thank you very much for the report. And I just want to thank you for all the work and the diligence you put into this. This is not an easy task to do, this kind of negotiating with, you know, so many employees and union, but thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to make it wasn't a question, but it's a comment. And I just also wanted to say thank you. And the job descriptions are very comprehensive and detailed in terms of what's expected of the different jobs. And so I think as employees that we appreciated just how much detail is put in there. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay. No questions, no further discussion. May I have a motion?
I move that the City Council adopt Resolution 24-0009, accepting and adopting tentative agreement between the City of Fillmore and the International Union of Operators Engineers Local 501 for the terms of a successor MOU covering the period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027, and adopting job descriptions for certain classifications.
I have a motion from Councilmember Mendez. May I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Councilmember Villaseñor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this agenda item is approved. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to, let's see, we're on 9I. Am I correct? They haven't lost us yet. And I will turn it over to staff again.
Thank you, Mayor. This report's also mine. Requesting consideration of resolution of approval of resolution 244012, which is fixing the compensation benefits and other terms and conditions of employment for non-represented management, mid-management, confidential, and part-time employees. And also the creation of new job descriptions and retitling as well for the management, mid-management, confidential, and part-time employees. This is also part of the citywide classification and compensation study that was recently completed. Staff has prepared an updated compensation and benefit resolution. Such compensation and salary schedules are reflected on salary schedule M and C. So effective July 1st, which is this upcoming in a couple pay cycles, we are requesting an increase base pay ranges. Those vary from anywhere from 5% to 17%, with the most common raise being at 6%. And I'm going to provide you with a quick snippet of what the actual salary ranges will be for all of these classifications. They're reflected there. There is a confidential position, which is the deputy city clerk, office manager, and that one is benchmarked at 1885, which means that that's the annual hours that such classification works. To align with the MOU as well of the local 501, we are also requesting an increase of $200 for this upcoming fiscal year for benefits. And the changes also will be just applicable to those who receive or opt into the benefits. For those who opt out, the cash out will still remain the same, which is $1,214. We're adding language to the resolution about the City Hall closure between Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, excluding emergency full-time and part-time employees. Those are to continue to report to work as scheduled. It includes also the update of the PEMCA, which is required, increase of the $5 bilingual pay for those mid-managers who receive that stipend, adds updated language about bereavement leave as well, and includes already paid benefit to some of the positions that receive a $42 educational incentive, and it adds language reflecting and correcting the cash out policy, not correcting it, but updating it more than anything, where there can only be a 40-hour cash out per fiscal year, and that is to be subject to the IRS regulations, but also all the positions under this classification need to take 10 days of vacation prior to requesting cash out, and there has to be also 10 days left on their general leave bucket. The following classifications are being removed from the salary schedule, and these are the classifications of fire captain and fire engineer, and such changes because they have they're no longer unrepresented. These positions are not part of the Fillmore Professional Firefighters Association, IFF Local 5382, and negotiations are still going as we speak today. So those have been removed. Once the negotiations conclude, we'll be back with a presentation. We are also requesting updates of classification and job descriptions. I do want to notate that some of the positions are vacant and they haven't been budgeted for, but it's best practice from an HR standpoint to leave those in the salary schedule. And so the Community Services Supervisor, it's a retitle of Parks and Recreations Director. Position is budget. It's not budgeted for, it's vacant. We're leaving it there just to make the update if in the future there's a need and budget for that. And the same applies with the Human Resources Director. That's being reclassified from what used to be Human Resources Director, Deputy City Clerk. Position is vacant. We do not have any plans on filling that position. The Finance Administrator classification is deleted. Public Works Director is being retitled from Municipal Services Director, City Engineer. And there is a new position which was included in the budget, which is a senior management analyst. And lastly, we're also providing you with all of the new job descriptions for all of the management, mid-management, confidential, and part-time employees. Fiscal impact was already included in the budget as well, and that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from council?
I understand how keeping certain job descriptions, even if they're vacant on here, is important just to maintain flexibility, essentially, with the needs for the staff. Could the same thing kind of be considered for the fire captain, fire engineer, with negotiations ongoing to potentially leave them should anything, just, it's still under negotiation, so it's still an unknown, to maybe leave that on there so that should there be changes to future negotiations. I just don't know whether we're locking something in, or maybe there's just information I don't know with the negotiations still ongoing.
So because they're no longer considered unrepresented mid-management, we cannot include them in this resolution. If something were to change, then we can always come back and amend the resolution itself. Okay. But right now, they are a recognized union, and we have to go through the actual process that PERB requires us to do.
Okay, perfect. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I do have one more clarification, and the senior management analyst is reporting directly to the Public Works Director, who has a new title?
So they're correct. So there are two senior management analysts. There's one for Public Works, and then there's one for the city manager's office.
Okay.
And so they both have the same classification, although the duties slightly change in, per the division.
Great. Okay, I think that's a great addition, so thank you. No other questions and any discussion amongst council? Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move that City Council adopt Resolution 24-4012, fixing the compensation, benefits, and other terms and conditions of employment for non-represented management and mid-management confidential part-time employees of the City of Fillmore, effective July 1st. And superseding and replacing Resolution 23-3980. And adopting Resolution 24-4015, creating certain unrepresented job classifications and adopting new and updated job descriptions.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this matter passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item number 9J, and we will turn it over to staff. Thank you.
This item is also mine, requesting for council to consider adoption of resolution, just saw that there's missing number there, Resolution 244010, which is to approve the First Amendment to the 2023 City Manager's Employment Agreement between the City of Fillmore and Mr. Dave Wayne Rollins. So City Council conducted a performance and compensation review of Mr. Rollins in closed session on May 14th. And at the conclusion of the closed session, the City Council gave the mayor parameters and direction to negotiate a compensation increase for the city manager. The negotiation concluded with an agreement that the city manager will receive an increase effective July 1st to a salary of $250,000 annually. There is sufficient funding to cover the First Amendment, and that was considered budget of the fiscal year 24-25. On behalf of the executive team, we want to thank Mr. Rollins for his leadership to the city, and that concludes my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
Great. Questions from council? I will entertain a motion then.
Okay, I will move that the City Council adopt Resolution 24-401 to approve the First Amendment to 2023 City Manager Employment Agreement between the City of Fillmore and David Wayne Rollins.
And may I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, this agenda item passes.
Mayor, I'm sorry, if I may, I just wanted to make a comment on that. And I just wanted to thank Dave for your leadership in the city. Appreciate all that you do. I just wanted to add that thank you for being really responsive when any concerns come up with either mine or others that people bring forward to me from the city. I feel that we usually get to a resolution pretty quickly. So really appreciate all of that. And I also wanted to add that I wanted to thank you for really considering new ideas and new partnerships to just keep continuing to improve the city of Fillmore. I really appreciate your work on that. So thank you.
Great comments, thank you. Anyone else?
I will say Dave definitely puts up with me challenging him quite a bit, which is good. Not just puts up with, but responds to my challenges. I ask him a lot of questions that sometimes he can't answer. He knows where to go to find the answer, or at least tells me he doesn't know, so that we can work on it together. And I look forward to continuing to challenge you for my remaining time on the council. So thanks.
Yes, and I just want to echo what my fellow two council members said, and thank you for always being there for answering the questions that I bring to you, and thank you for everything you do for the city.
And I'm going to add, having worked with Dave almost since he's been here, he got here a little bit sooner than I did, but over all the years, and I see the transition that this city has taken place, and I would give Dave a whole lot of credit for improvements, projects that have come to town, just an incredible amount of things that if the city knew how he was supportive and backing some of these changes in the community, and all cause for the better. It's well-deserved, and we just want him to stay forever, so thank you. Okay, then we now are going to recess and go into closed session. We have a conference with legal counsel on existing litigation, and another conference with on anticipated litigation. I thought there was, that was all? I thought there were two, on two cases, right. Okay, I knew I saw two in there. Yeah. So we will go ahead and recess right now, and we will come back to, once we're finished with closed session, and then conclude the meeting. So thank you. Okay, council is back in session, and we were updated, and we have no reportable actions on 3 different issues, no reportable actions. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting now to our next scheduled meeting, which is okay, somebody must have the date for me.
I think it should be July 9th. That's like
July 9th? I'm going to adjourn the meeting to July 9th. Thank you.